Sharon Weisenbaum. I'm the director of White Pine Institute, and I'm also your instructor for the upcoming graduate mentorship program. In this video, I'm going to give you a few tips on how to get the most out of this 2-year program. The first tip I'm going to give is to actively participate. And one thing this could mean is that even with this video, that you could get out some paper and a pen and maybe take some notes. And even if you don't look at those notes later, it can help you remember things to take notes. So taking notes is a really good thing. I've even had some misgivings about even having the handouts be the PowerPoints that I use because I know the power of writing things down so much. And so, I would really I want to encourage students to actually take notes. And sometimes when everything is written up for you in the handouts, you're not as inclined to take notes. And so it doesn't work so much with your brain to help you remember the material. But the handouts do have a lot of material in them. And so I encourage you to take a lot of notes along with it and add to those handouts. So active participation can mean a lot of things, but just you will talk about different ways of actively participating in the time in between the weekends as well. So the second thing that could help you get a lot of benefit from this program is to take things in small bits. So during a 3-day weekend, if you're streaming it or if you're there live, it's like having a feast, and you really get a lot of material, a lot of inspiration, a real shift in how you're looking at things. And doing things in that kind of immersive way, of course, is extremely helpful. But for things to really stick in the long term, taking things in small, digestible bits is very, very helpful. And so I will be trying to facilitate this by giving weekly or semi-weekly assignments that help you stay engaged in the material in little ways. But also, I very much recommend that you schedule time to work with the material. And doing it more regularly is more important than doing it in large quantities. So even if you take 10 minutes a day to go over some flashcards, or re-listen to a lecture, or to read an article that has been recommended, it's better to do 10 minutes a day over a long period of time. It really adds up and keeps you connected, and even that little bit of inspiration you then bring with you to the clinic, and it starts to feed into everything you're doing and thinking about, and it can kind of grow exponentially if you stay in it regularly in very small bits. Sometimes one of the reasons why we don't get a lot out of a course, or we sort of lose interest, or get overwhelmed and just quit, is because we have an idea that I should sit down and listen to 2 hours of this, and that is impossible to think about, and so we end up not doing it and getting further and further behind. So I think small bits is a really important part of the program, kind of like what Annie Lamott talks about in her book Bird by Bird, which I really recommend. Great book. So doing things in small bits, and then part of that is also, another tip is to re-watch and re-listen to the material. So all the videos are going up on our website. The audio is downloadable. You can put it onto your mobile device, your iPod, and listen to it on a regular basis. Again, a little bit every day or 5 days a week will go a really long way. So re-watching, even if you've attended the weekend, just listen to it again. And I'll facilitate this by including assignments, including in the weekly or semi-weekly assignments, assignments to listen to certain portions of the weekend. So that's another tip on how to get the most out of this weekend. The next tip is to bring this into your clinic in a really conscious way, but to integrate the idea of small bits when you bring it into your clinic. It is actually impossible if you've been used to working in a particular way. At the beginning of the course, you'll get all kinds of ideas, but you can't integrate them instantly. And it really takes time. And so I recommend right away after the first weekend starting to integrate some of the ideas in little ways, even if this is just thinking about symptoms in a new way, but you do the same thing you've always done with your patients. And just starting to think about it differently. Then, as we get into diagnosis and the method for diagnosis, pick one or two people that you're going to apply that method to and do everyone else the same way you've always done it. And there can be an urge to, I want to integrate this material with everybody, but that will get you overwhelmed. And so just pick one or two people and start to rethink their diagnosis based on what we're learning. So taking that idea of small bits into practicing in the clinic. But I really recommend practicing in the clinic and not doing the same old with everybody without making an effort to integrate some of the ideas, but then not doing it in too ambitious a way. Okay, the next thing I would recommend as a tip for getting the most out of the program is to schedule your mentoring session with me as soon as possible. You are allowed 2 mentoring sessions, one each year, and the mentoring sessions can be extremely helpful in getting some of the obstacles to learning out of the way so that you can really start to make the most out of the program. So the guidelines for doing the mentoring session, for things you have to write up in order to prepare for the mentoring session, are in your student resource area. So you can download those and fill one of those out and send it to me. And also email me to schedule your mentoring session, and we'll do that as soon as possible. That can be very helpful. The next tip for getting the most out of the program is to ask questions. That's what the forum is for, to really participate. If something's confusing to you, ask a question. And it's my main full-time job is to be there for you. And so I try to answer all the questions. I do answer all the questions. I try to do it in a really speedy way. And so that's another way. I've noticed some students never ask a question, never participate at all. But the students who do participate really get more out of the program. So you can ask questions and also submit case studies. After the 3rd weekend, you are able to submit case studies, and the students who do that really get a lot out of it. The case studies are reviewed by the TA and then reviewed by me, and it's really a chance to work your particular way of doing an intake and diagnosing and fine-tune it, and you get a lot out of it. So I very much recommend participating in that way. And then the final tip that I have is to talk about the material with other practitioners and tell people what you're learning, how you're understanding it. Even later, you might want to teach a little class. I remember when my sister was in college and she was taking a terribly difficult biochemistry class, and it was considered the hardest class in the biology department, and she was really nervous about it. And what she did was to create a study group in which she was the teacher, and she was going to explain all the material to the other students. And this way, she had to actually learn the material in a way that she could articulate it back to people. And for me, I have found that extremely useful. And in fact, a lot of times what I enjoy teaching, what I enjoy setting up a teaching scenario for myself about things not that I know about, but that I actually want to learn about, because having to actually articulate it back out forces me to get really clear myself and sets me up with a deadline that really organizes me and inspires me. And it's really fun to talk about it. So if you can talk about it or even teach a little class to some coworkers about what you're learning, you will get so much out of it. So I always encourage my students to start talking about it and even start teaching it. You totally have my permission to do with the material what works for you in terms of passing it on to other people. So of course the materials that we're using here you can't share with other people, and we've made an agreement about that, but you can make your own materials and you can teach it in your own way. So here comes the train, and I think that's my cue to end this little video, but hopefully these suggestions will be helpful for you to get the most out of the graduate mentorship program. Thanks.